WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We Should Know is on the air. J.W. Simmons here, your host. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest today and talk about a subject that's critically important to you, everyone in this county, and some would say to the region of this state that we live in, which is the southeastern part of North Carolina. And the person that I'm going to introduce could actually introduce me because you may know him much better than me, and his name is Ray Jordan. Ray, thank you for being here today. I want to introduce you in this way. You've had multiple jobs, and the titles of those jobs, in many of those jobs, has been executive director or director. The job you have transitioned to now also holds that title of executive director, but the difference is it holds economic development as a responsibility. What caused you to have a sense that this is something I want to try? In my career path, I want to be the executive director of economic development in a rural county in North Carolina, of which you grew up in.
JW, thanks for having me today. So, as you well know, my career with Sampson County started almost 27 years ago now as the director for the Exposition Center and also served as assistant director for economic development. Mm-hmm. Throughout that time, I've worked in that capacity with multiple directors of the Economic Development Commission, and over time, I have had opportunity at 3 different occasions to serve as interim director, mm-hmm. while there was a search for others. But to answer your question the most is why would I do that and make the change is that number one, I have a keen interest in it. I have a keen interest in our county being as successful as it can be, and how do we develop growth and create the environment that where our children will want to come back and be part of our community, and not go to college and with no intention of coming back. So, but the bigger thing is with that is at the time, over time, I had opportunity for this position. I've been offered to it a couple of times. And during those times, what the difference was to now is that about 6 years ago, the county commissioners made a significant change in direction of how the county administration and commissioners perceived economic development. And to that point, they established the Economic Development Fund. And they allocated $2.5 million with the intent of putting $250,000 a year into it. Now, you have to understand, prior to this, the county owned no land. We had nothing under control as far as buildings or sites. And so we were, in some ways, trying to sell from an empty apple cart. So this shift, thanks to the commissioners, was to invest in property, invest in sites, to set the stage and set the table for growth in the future. Now, the biggest thing with all I've said is that one takeaway that everybody needs to understand clearly is that economic development is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Mm. It takes a lot of moving parts to come in together to attract new industry, and it also encompasses working with your existing industry and other partners as you do work in a community that's aimed towards improving the quality of life, which is the overall part. Economic development, what it can mean for our county is, for example, the project with Enviva. That project landed out at the county line at 403, and that project at the time was a $130 million investment. And so if you take that $130 million investment, taxable investment, and you put that tax rate on there, you can see the economic benefit to the county. So the Economic Development Commission focus is on non-residential growth. That would be mainly industrial, and it may involve some sort of commercial, but generally it's going to be industrial related.
One of the things I want to kind of follow the thread that you kind of put out there is that kind of drawing this parallel between what is industrial, what is not, what is business growth. One of the big things now that in our country is affordable housing and building sites that can literally house hundreds, if not thousands, of people. If you look at a site and a development site by a builder that maybe has 300 to 500 acres and they're going to build 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 homes, does that move it more from residential to a industrial kind of growth capacity? Where does that line draw itself?
Well, the thing with residential that any county or community needs to be aware of, if you have, and I'm going to term this rampant housing development, all of a sudden houses with funding levels of schools, other social programs that the county administers, and oftentimes the value of those homes, you can overload your school systems, you can overload the services that can be provided, because generally speaking, the most revenue for the county towards providing services come from non-residential assets. Now, it's all important, and every I'm not downplaying the importance of a house or housing, because it's desperately needed in our county, especially when I say affordable housing, things that, for example, we get constant calls from schools and school administrators, a hospital, and they're looking for folks to rent or to live in that they're trying to recruit to come here to work within the hospital or as teachers and that kind of thing. So residential is very important, but and I haven't done the math on it with a new tax rate, but if you had a $200,000 house and you divide that by the tax rate and you got 2 children in school, the amount of taxes that generally a person would pay on that one single house would be eaten up just by those 2 kids being in the school system.
Absolutely. But that kind of rounds itself back to the contributors to the tax base. And as economic developer, when you look at your landscape of what you want to accomplish, and we'll get into that later on in the show, but when you look at that, is the development of housing, the growth of housing. We've got several golf course communities here. I've had people look at me and say, wonder why we don't have more homes built in the northern end of the county, where there's a huge growth coming out of Wake County, just tremendous, to offer some capability of folks to be able to get to Raleigh in 30, 40 minutes, but yet there doesn't seem to be anything happening. And I said, I'm not sure that falls under economic development.
Well, it is and it does, but I will let you know has been significant growth in the western part of the county, with Cumberland County, folks coming out of Cumberland County back in toward Alderville and Roseboro, Saddleburg area. So there is some growth going in that area, and quite a bit actually. And also, if you go into the northwestern portion of the county, there is that growth going on there. I had a real estate broker called and was basically looking to place to build a large subdivision in Sampson County. And generally, if a realtor starts calling us, it's because they've kind of exhausted their avenues within the community, so to speak. Exactly. And we don't have a magic bullet for them, but oftentimes they've already approached you and say, JW, will you sell your land? And you tell them, no, it's not for sale.
Right.
So a lot of times it's the matter of landowners having that land and wanting to keep it, and for whatever use it is going to be, and that's their right to do. And but at the same time, but I can tell you that there are people looking. So if someone's watching the show and you live in northern Sampson County or western Sampson County especially, you can expect phone calls as you go in the future, because I think they're going to come, and there's going to be growth coming in. And but again, we need to all be mindful of that growth and how we want to grow as a county.
Well, and one of the things that, again, I'm going to stay on this just for a couple of minutes here, is that one of the things, you're exactly right, and most folks I talk to do own property. It's routine. Sometimes 2 or 3 times a week you're getting communications. I want to buy your properties, and I have so and so and so, and they'll put a cash offer and all this kind of thing. That is going on. What does that strike you as a developer, as the lead for economic development in this county? What would you say to people that are getting those? And sometimes it's intriguing. Sometimes people says, well, I thought about doing something, but I want to be part of the payout. I don't want to just sell it, but I want to be somehow part of the payout. Who do they go to? A realtor, or can they come to economic development and say, help me understand what's going on here? Is that part of your role?
Well, with the economic development, again, like I say, our focus is on non-residential. So, but when we receive calls, we try to direct people to different resources. Obviously, if someone's interested in selling their land, most cases either private treaty sale or work with a realtor. That seems to work well, and I think that's certainly an avenue folks should consider. But then again, the question comes is, do you want to be the developer? Mm-hmm. Do you want to try to develop the land yourself? It's expensive developing sites and properties. Residential, over a certain number of lots within a subdivision require 2 entrances, requires road paving. So the cost is a lot to do. But when folks reach out to us, we try to help them and as best we can. But again, our focus is on non-residential growth.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to drill into this economic development growth, and we're going to talk about that word a bit, what that looks like, what it means. And some folks would say, I'm going to leave this as a lead in here, but the question is going to be, what does growth look like from your eyes? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're talking to the Executive Director of Economic Development right here in Sampson County, Ray Jordan. Stay tuned.
Computer viruses, malware, and ransomware are out there. They're dangerous, and they can steal your identity and damage your equipment. Star Communications is now offering Protect IQ. This service adds an extra layer of protection to every device connected to your network, working quietly in the background. Star can help you protect yourself from the inside out with Protect IQ. Call Star today and take advantage of this free service when you sign up for whole home Wi-Fi with Star Communications.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host, and we're talking about something near and dear and important to you. You might not think about it each and every day, but it's the whole idea and concept of economic development. Ray Jordan is with us, and he's the Executive Director of the Economic Development Commission right here in Sampson County. Ray, I want to start this portion of the show with something I know you've read, and you might be looking at updating or not, but it's called a vision statement, and it says Sampson County will be a leader in growth and diversification of business and industry. That's what's on the website that you're familiar with. That's the vision of economic development. Is that where we are now? Is that vision still relevant? And are we headed in that direction?
Well, JW, our board, there's a Sampson County Economic Development Advisory Board, and it's made up of folks from across the county. And together, this vision statement was created. And as I started our conversation earlier with regard to the investments that have been made by the county and the county commissioners, and the support of that has led to that. I do think that the vision statement is accurate and that we will be, but the one thing that's always needs to people clearly understand is this is not an overnight economic development does not happen overnight. When you're just a quick example, we're in September, well, almost September now, and last September I started working on a project that we received through Department of Commerce. And we just 2 weeks ago received notification that we were not selected. So the thing about that is all during that period of time, there was information having to be provided to these people to try to stay in the hunt or be considered until you're eliminated. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in for a long time, and it got down to the company located in Guilford County. And with that being said, my point is that project, even though we didn't land it, it took almost 11 months of effort, not every day, but it took some effort and continued conversation with these folks and with consultants that were working on the project to provide information they needed to make their decisions.
The part of that also that struck me too is the diversification part. We often look at the big, I guess the big growth and money thing in Sampson and rural eastern North Carolina is agriculture.
Correct.
We see that, but when I saw and read the statement and tried to process each word, which sometimes I get too analytical in that, but when I process diversification and look at what we're really saying there, we're really saying there's multiple ways. It might not be a Amazon or anything, but a 200-person industry, a 300 or 400, that's critically important as well.
Oh yeah, and one thing that we have to realize where we are is understanding our workforce or available workforce. And so as we look to seek projects, as JW, if we had a project that came in tomorrow looking at 1,000 jobs, you have to ask your question, where would they come from? If we could, ideally, if it was a perfect world and we could recruit who we would like, it would be a $100 million project with 40 jobs, because you could easily fill the 40 jobs and you have $100 million in tax investment.
Right.
But every county in North Carolina is looking at those.
Yeah, if you could create the equation, that would be it.
Right. If I could solve that problem, I could quit work.
Right.
So with the going back to diversification, and everyone that lives in Sampson County should be very proud of that fact. Agriculture is our number one industry in Sampson County, but if you look at our industrial base, it is very diverse in itself. You've got some agro-processing, such as Smithfield next door. You've got Hogslat, you've got DuBois Strapping, you've got Schindler. And the one good thing about all the industries that are in our county, and then you look at Roseboro with DuBois Steel, and you've got CCL Metal Sciences right here in town, United Forest Products out in Industrial Park. Our county's industrial base is diversified in such a way that heaven forbids that one of them leave or close. Mm-hmm. But if one of them closes, there's not a significant trickle down that would occur and cause other closures. In some communities, especially when you got an automotive situation, within 40 miles of an automotive plant, you could have 100 or more vendors that are supplying them. So if that plant closes, all of a sudden you've got this trickle-down effect of all these other things closing. And we are somewhat protected and have a very diverse and stable industrial base.
So when I think about that, and something you just said triggered, we had for years a company in Garland, North Carolina, that was at one time was called Brooks Brothers. Then another company came, and it employed 40 plus or more people at given whatever period they were in. When something of that nature, which I understand now is closed, when that closes, what is the huge impact? Not only that Garland, North Carolina feels in the southern part of the county here, but what is that impact for the totality of the county, and how does it affect you as a developer? How does that cause you to kind of reconfigure your directions and your thoughts? Right.
So with regard to Garland, you're correct. Brooks Brothers owned the facility, went into bankruptcy, and it was bought by Cayenne Acquisitions, which operated as Garland Apparel Group. They continued manufacturing. They were up around 80 employees when the owners of that company decided to close. So all of a sudden you had 80 folks who were out of work, which is a significant impact. One good thing at this point is that facility is in very good shape. They had invested quite a bit of money in upgrades and upfit to the building prior to it closing last December. And so it's not, quote, abandoned. There's machinery and equipment in it that's still being taxed and tax revenue coming in. Versus if it does not reopen, then the tax value on that decreases, and then that would affect the town of Garland and the county.
You just said something I think is important. If it does not, is there a potential, and how do you market a facility of that nature? And I think it gets right back to what you do and what the commission looks at. How do you market that? How do you take that thread and say, I use that word simply because I'm thinking about closing it. How do you take that thread and hold it up and say, look, what we've got here, where do you go with that? I mean, you can't, obviously, farmers in the area, I don't think, is interested in investing in that.
So with regard to that type of project, we belong to the North Carolina Southeast Partnership. Mm-hmm. North Carolina Southeast is a 20-county partnership region that basically covers from Craven County all the way down to Columbus County and 20 counties in eastern North Carolina. Primarily, what they do is they market the assets of the communities, and also involved in this is the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, who generate leads. So there's multiple ways to generate leads for projects. One is that oftentimes these larger projects go through EDP&C, who then funnel them through Southeast Partnership to the local directors. In our state, the Southeast Partnership, if I'm correct, and is the one organization that takes the inquiries from the state and disseminates them to us, rather than the state having to look at 20 different counties individually and try to get this out. So that's been a benefit as well. But then the Southeast Partnership, they do, and the state and both of them do marketing missions where they are out soliciting companies across the United States and overseas to try to look at and expand, build plants, do whatever it's going to be, or use existing buildings. And then you've got the other, the one bottom hanging option is the direct contact, that where I would meet you and we would form some relationship, or you would contact us somehow looking something. So that's kind of how it works. Or a consulting firm that's managing someone looking to buy something like the Garland facility or others, whatever it may be. And oftentimes these consultants, the main thing for us is keeping our information current on our website, because that's 9 times out of 10, that's where people are going to first. I mean, they're investigating you before you even know that you're even being considered. So in a lot of ways, they probably know more about us than we know about ourselves.
One of the things I want to pick up on that before we get beyond this conversation is that oftentimes we'll see rural areas just right here in our state, and you mentioned regions, in the Hillsborough area up there. We've seen battery plants and these, I'm talking huge operations, car manufacturers coming into the area, and you see, landscapes changing. Mm-hmm. What lands that for that county rather than having it somewhere in this southeastern partnership? Is it politics? Is it somebody looking at it from the state level? How do we get overlooked?
No. Well, that's a very complex question.
Yes, it is.
And I don't have a full, complete answer for you, but I can offer some comments. In eastern North Carolina, just say east of 95, and a lot of small communities, very rural. Most of the counties are Tier 1 counties, which means they're the most, quote, distressed and receive the best opportunity for state incentives and other things that a company may consider. But the biggest thing there is, JW, is having available land that has the infrastructure needed to support these industries. So you can have a 200-acre farm and think, well, that'd be a great industrial site. Mm-hmm. But when you look around, the nearest power line 6 miles away, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I want to follow up on this when we come back from break and talk about some of those things that you just mentioned that may be, I'll call them interferers,
barriers.
That may fall into place that we don't think about, and how we overcome that. So when we come back from break, I want to pick up from that and kind of go from there. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment talking about a very complex issue and trying to get a piece of time out of the executive director here. We'll be back in a moment.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Announcing the 54th Annual Kahari Powwow, Friday and Saturday, September the 13th and 14th on the Kahari Tribal Grounds, located at 7531 North US 421 Highway in Clinton, North Carolina. Come out and enjoy the sights, sounds, food, and fun of this cultural celebration. The Kahari Tribe welcomes you.
Welcome back, folks. J.W. Simmons here, your host. We Should Know is on air. We're working through our 14th year here this month in August and September. And just add another month to that 14th year being on air. We want to thank you for your comments and commentary and support over the years, and kind of giving us some ideas of things you would like to hear more about from people that are literally at the front of making things happen in our area. And one of those folks is Ray Jordan, Executive Director here of Economic Development. Ray, thank you again for coming in. And the subject, I want to open this segment with the understanding there is so much in your bag that you're doing. There's no way we could do this in a 50-minute show. So we're going to leave a lot of things out. So, I'll probably get some phone calls. You should ask this, should ask that. We're not going to cover everything. But your phone line is always open if somebody has a question. As we went to break, we were talking a bit about some of those things that's involved. And we kind of alluded to the closing of the clothing plant in Garland. And then we moved to the idea of how do we get some of these larger plants, hardware and battery plants that are opening all over North Carolina, hundreds of thousands of people. The question is, how do you evaluate, as the leader of economic development, if it's a good fit here? What is that question? And the bigger part of that question is, what will folks accept? Because you and I both have had this conversation off air where we've seen industry start here and then folks just push back. We don't want that.
Well, I think that in the situation where you referred to last of pushback, that comes from there has been some instances in the past where projects were brought forth that were not a good fit. Not every project is a good fit. And so, my goal and my position is to not to be that complete filter by any means, because understand, I work for county manager, I work for 5 commissioners, and I work for the citizens of the county. And so with that, I guess one of the things is, as I learned when I took this job, that, well, I knew it for some time, but it just kind of came around, is that I'm actually the first person that has held this job that's actually from this county in about 30 years. So I'm saying all that to get to the point is this. I live here. I care about the community, and I care about what we are going to look like in the future. 2 grandsons. Would love for them to come back here. Would
want to come back.
Yeah, they're small. Want those things to happen. So, as you start looking at projects, the one thing is this: how these projects often come are they're called requests for information from an industry. And when you get these things, they can range, JW, from 200 or 300 questions that have to be answered to as much as I just need a cut sheet on a property. And it's just varies such in what people ask for. But when you look down and you see something, and as an example, I start with a list of things that they're asking about and seeing where would we be eliminated. Well, if I go down the list and the first thing they say is they need 600 acres of land, there's no need of me talking to them or even putting forth any more effort.
Just not realistic.
Because we don't have it, not in one tract. Somebody comes in and says, they need 3 million gallons a day of sewer capacity. There's nowhere in the county that has that. So it becomes about infrastructure and what you can have and what their needs are. And it's very complex when you start looking at it. It's complex, but yet it's simple. If you get a company that needs a lot of water, it's not only just how much water, but it's the pressure of the water and the volume at which it can be put into a plant, not only for production, but for fire suppression. But you get the one of our biggest challenges that we have with any of our sites is sewer capacity. And it doesn't matter where you are in the county, because you got to remember there's only a handful of communities or cities and towns in the county that actually have wastewater treatment. And so, that becomes an issue. I mean, you obviously you can't put 600 people somewhere don't have anywhere to handle even if it's just domestic waste. There are some situations where something that, for example, a call center that might have a couple hundred people that you may could build a septic field, but again, that's taking up acreage within industrial parks. It's not undoable, but what they're looking for is what they want. So you're never totally prepared for any of them. But what you got to try to do is again going back to setting that table and setting that plate as access to the property. How one of the most common things we get: how close are you to an interstate? You got to think about we're sitting right in the middle of I-95, just about from north to south. We're at Newton Grove Industrial Park. We're about 15 minutes from 95. Here we're, depending on which way you go, could be 30 to 20, depending on how fast you drive. But the infrastructure and what you need, and you got to realize, up until 5 years ago, the Sampson County Economic Development, Sampson County did not control one single acre of land. And what I mean, we don't have to own it, but we had none under control. And now, luckily with the foresight of the commissioners, and I can't stress enough how thankful that I am to them for making that commitment, because that's a large commitment, large investment, and obviously they want to see return on that investment, and the citizens want to see it. But without that investment, I don't think that we would have any success in the future. And there's grant opportunities out there, and we're participating in those activities. But what you will find in most cases is that these granting organizations that have funding available for different things, they are more aimed at helping those that are already helping themselves. So it's critically important that we continue the development of these sites. We purchased the land, remaining 120 acres in the industrial park here in Clinton. Within the last 2 years, we built a new sewer line and water lines going into that part. So now that the water and sewer is actually sitting at that site where that took over a year to complete. If a company had needed it in 6 months, we couldn't have done it. Now it's sitting there. Yes, we've got investment in it, and luckily we got a $1.2 million grant to do it. And but we've enhanced that site, and what we've got to continue to do is to enhance the sites that we have, look for future sites, and understand how those sites can be developed or grow. Again, it's not simple. But it's not rocket science either. But it's not overly complicated. But it takes investment and commitment of the community to do that, and especially elected officials, in which they're doing. They're put their money where their mouth is, and they understand the need for it, and they understand that the county needs economic growth and tax base. At the bottom of the line, our job for economic development is to increase the non-residential tax base. You think about if you add $100 million company at what that tax is coming in would be $625,000, which would go a long way in operations of the county. Just suppose you get 5 of them, all of a sudden you're making progress. When you look at the county, and one of the things that impacts the county's budget is the school debt. So anything we do to increase the non-residential tax base, in a way, it helps offset those things. So that's one of the main things people need to understand is that it's extremely important. But what we're not here to. I will not bring something to the county that I would be afraid to put next to my house. I think that's a question I get often. Is, what do you bring? We don't want this. We don't want that. I don't want anything to harm our county. But the thing is, most industries don't. They're just like farmers. Most every farmer is, regardless of what environmental folks say, are the best stewards of the land. So a lot to do in that. The county's invested in 210 acres at Newton Grove on I-40, and that's a beautiful site, industrial site. We're working now to finalize the master plan on it. We're still waiting on the traffic impact analysis to be fully reviewed and finalized by the NCDOT. Once that occurs, we'll then be able to roll that out to the public. We've not been able to do that yet, and we've not done it. We've got some conceptual drawings of what it may look like, but I'm not ready to reveal that until we know what we've got. And then obviously we will share that with the commissioners, the town and Newton Grove officials, and then the general public to let them know what the plan could look like, not what it will be, but what it could look like. And then together we'll start working on how do we enhance that site. One of the things we did earlier this year through a grant that we were able to receive is we were able to work with Star Communications to run high-speed fiber to the site. Now, somebody said, well, that's premature. Well, the funding was there.
Yeah.
And now the fiber is there, and we can supply up to 10 gig of data for a company.
And part of that is, too, I think you have to act when it's available. If not, you're not going to. When we come back, I want to follow up, because that's something I wanted to talk to you about, is that site at Newton Grove. There's been a lot of conversation about it, both pro and con, and talk a bit about where that is going. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be back in a moment. We're touching the surface on a lot of issues here. So if you want to ring Ray's number, you can do that and follow up with him. We'll be back in one moment. Call a friend. Stay tuned. We'll come on to the last part of the show.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home, so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Announcing the 54th Annual Coharie Powwow, Friday and Saturday, September the 13th and 14th on the Coharie Tribal Grounds, located at 7531 North US 421 Highway in Clinton, North Carolina. Come out and enjoy the sights, sounds, food, and fun of this cultural celebration. The Coharie Tribe welcomes you.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. This is the last part of the show coming up. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're talking about a very viable subject today, something that affects your life oftentimes on a daily basis. Don't give it a whole lot of thought, but economic development is a discussion. The executive director of the economic development process and commission in the county here is Ray Jordan. Ray, we've had a very vital conversation today, and you and I are smiling at each other because on break we've had a bigger conversation probably, but a lot of the things that need to be covered we're trying to hit on air, and I want to just remind folks that you are available, as you've already mentioned in the show. You are from this community. You grew up here. Your family grew up here. You have a huge passion for the growth and development of this county. So I want to hit on several things to kind of follow up on. As we went to break earlier, we were talking about the Newton Grove area, one of the industrial sites that the county now has invested in. There are those folks out there that still will say, why in the world did we get involved in investing in a site in Newton Grove or anywhere else? Why do we have to do that? And I've got to bring that out simply because if I don't, somebody's going to say, well, you didn't ask him that, you didn't mention it. But there is some resistance in that well, nothing hadn't been done with it. Well, we talked about the marathon. This is a marathon. You got to put it together slowly. So help us understand how critically important that is, not only because of location, but the future viability of that property.
Well, let's just start with the very beginning. From the first meeting with the family that owned the property, at the time Commissioner Wooten and myself met with the family that owned the property, and from that initial first meeting, it was 2 years and 2 days we worked with that family nearly once every couple of weeks to negotiate to get that done, and the point that they had the desire to sell it. And JW, quite frankly, they offered that property to us at a what I consider to be was a fair market value. I think we have $9,700 an acre in it, is what we had in it. So that sounds like a lot, and it is. But you got to remember, it's sitting right on exit 343 on I-40, and then that's only 10 to 15 minutes up the road to I-95.
Direct access.
Oh, I mean, it's perfect. But you know, JW, one thing that I'll share, the family that sold it, the Joe Britt Warren family, collectively the brothers and sisters, one of their main things for reaching out to us and working with the county was they wanted to create legacy for the community. And what I mean by legacy is they wanted to do something that in their view would benefit Newton Grove and northern Sampson County. So yeah, money was important for them, but also for them, that legacy part was, I would say, ranked up there as high as the money did, because they wanted where they grew up to be better and have better jobs, and that's what they told us. So, but the proximity to that property, on our new marketing materials, it says Sampson County Economic Development, perfectly positioned. Well, everybody says, well, we live halfway to Raleigh, halfway to Wilmington. Yeah, that's true, and people can go either way. But what we need is folks to live here and work here. Mm-hmm. And that property, in my view, it will take time. And the one thing that I would say for folks that are looking at that property that drive by it every day is that while you don't see this massive work, there is ongoing work that people are not aware of that you may see today, you may not see. But since the purchase of that property a little over a year and a half ago, we've been able to remove structures off of it. We've done boundary surveys. We've done elevation surveys. We're doing all this due diligence to help further develop the park. And really and truly, the one thing that I think has frustrated people is that we have not revealed, quote, a site plan for it. Mm-hmm. And that site plan is coming. Until DOT does a review of the traffic analysis and they tie it all back together and then be able to present it, we would be premature in doing that. We're trying to make good steps. We're not trying to hide anything, but when people see something for the first time, that's what sticks in their mind. Mm-hmm. And then if you change something, they're like, that's not what you told us. Mm-hmm. Well, one thing about this, we're going to reveal some plans and some site plans of what it could look like, but everybody needs to understand that may change. It would be suited. Somebody might come along tomorrow, one industry, and want to buy the whole park. Mm-hmm. That happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. But what we hope to do is have a combination of highway commercial investment, which could be restaurant, retail, gas station kind of things, and then a mix of light industrial. And again, what we're working there on is we want to create things that our community can support and hopefully attract industries that will support our community, because what you've got to create is a win for both. And that's what we're going to be working towards.
And I think what I heard you say is that you are in the process of redefining that property. Mm-hmm. With that said, if somebody comes along, the definition now may radically change, especially if it's a fit for that area and for that community.
Correct. That's correct.
I want to kind of transition also to something I read, and this was the comment: schools help build communities. Communities build workforces. Mm-hmm. Is that the proper perspective to look at? Because oftentimes we go, well, we've got to have, because you mentioned workforce a while ago, we've got to have the workforce here. Can that, for example, a high school, can you say, well, and I look at the Midway area, look at what's happened in the Midway area, new high school, Midway area just seems to be exploding up there with, new houses and so forth. The dynamic for schools, if the school is a viable part, then the community follows. Is help us understand that.
I mean, with economic development, there's so many things that impact how you can go. But obviously, one of the biggest challenges that a company has, whether they're existing now, is finding employees, and especially when you have a new company come in. So you got to have available workforce, and then be trained. Or have training programs that might start in the high schools or middle schools, but yet then could potentially transcend through the community college or surrounding colleges and universities. So, we've got an excellent network in our state for educational, but the main thing is having those people. In the census, Sampson County showed a slight decline in population, and then, so it's an older population. But, the thing is, what are we doing to bring people back? The kids that graduate and go off, we want them to come back. But so I think that's important, and then working with these partners and with regard to workforce, and then trying to grow that. And then the other thing with workforce is there's a big number of people that live in our county that work in other counties, and there's some that live in other counties and work here. So just as an example, if you were driving to Raleigh every day to work, and you whatever position you're in, obviously, if there was something available here, you'd much rather not have that drive.
Absolutely.
So, so I think part of that is that, as we work to create more opportunities for people and for employment opportunities, that's what part of economic development will do. So as we go through the year, we've got several things that we're trying to do. We're bringing back. When I say bringing back, that's kind of I shouldn't say it that way, but one of our focus areas, we have several, is going to be, we're going to work on, we have what we call HR Connect. So that ties back to where we just came from with regard to workforce. HR Connect is an organization of HR people within the local industries and major employers in the county. It could include a hospital, it can include county government, major employers, where these folks, we're offering a setting where they can have peer-to-peer collaboration and offer things that can help them.
These are some of those target areas.
Right. So find out what are their needs, what current needs, what are their future needs, and then how can we offer programs or bring in folks that are professionals of this to assist them in these needs. So that's the HR Connect.
Okay, and we got a couple of minutes, so I want to try to get all those in.
And then we've got the Manufacturing Council, which that organization is going to be made up of your leadership teams within your industry. And that's very critical because it ties to the other program, which is our existing industry program. So the Manufacturing Council, that's going to target your upper level management and have things of significant interest that they bring to the table. Say, Ray, this is a topic that we all have, and can you find somebody to bring in and share with us about this or that and understand those concerns? And it's kind of a learning opportunity. But then the existing industry program, that is critically vital, because JW, it's a whole lot easier to try to work to keep our existing industry than it is to try to recruit a new one. So we're making a concerted effort to go visit these industries, and that's just really gotten kicked off in the last couple months. But now one of the things we're doing is our advisory board, we're taking those folks on tour, so to speak. And next month, we're going to be in September, we're going to be in Roseboro at Dubois Steel. And Mr. Scott Harris, the plant manager, is very excited to have us there. And we're going to take them and the Board of Commissioners and some elected officials so they can learn what's going on. We got to have this understanding that we're all here to work together.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today. And one of the things I think we have learned is that your efforts, both historically and particularly now, has been to make Sampson County a beacon, and so folks can see that light and say, what is this? And you're perfectly willing and capable of making sure they understand that all the opportunities exist in Sampson County. Thank you, Ray, for being with us today.
Thank you, JW. Appreciate you having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week on We Should Know. And again, thank you for being with us throughout the years of this show being on air. And God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.